One. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ellen Feldman-Ornato. I'm a co-founder of the Boulder Company. We are a Middlesex Chamber of County member, and we've been in business about 6 years doing leadership development and training. And in this whole conversation about how we manage our stress and bring a happier us to work over the course of the day, how we manage our emotions across the day so that we leave at the end of the day with more of ourselves intact for the parts of our lives that we work so hard for. So today's session, as we start to talk about managing stress and managing our inputs, it's really about, the holiday season is upon us. All of us have different, some of us are like, yay, the holiday season. Others are like, oh, really on top of everything else I have to do, I have to now kick into holiday mode. So what we're going to do today is we have an hour together. We're going to go through some exercises and techniques, as Kathy and Lauren said. This is a cameras on if you can make it happen session, and I'm just going to invite you. Let's get going. So the first thing that I'm going to invite you to do is to put your feet flat on the floor, settle back away from your screen, close your eyes gently if that's comfortable for you. Take a nice deep breath in to a count of 4. So breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Keeping your eyes closed just for a moment. Take yourself to your happy place. It might be in nature, might be in your bed all cozied up with a book. Take yourself to a place that brings you comfort and ease and joy. What's in that space? What are the sounds? What are the smells? What's the environment? Who are you with? Are you by yourself? Take one more deep breath in. Let it out with a and open your eyes. Hi there. As we enter into this conversation about managing our emotions and managing our inputs, the first thing to take away is that we always have some degree of control on calming ourselves. That simple exercise that's called square breathing, that breathing in and holding it for a measured count at the top and then exhaling and holding it for a measured count at the bottom, actually regulates not just our breathing, but our our brain chemicals, our limbic system, which is what controls our emotional responses to things. It tells our body and our brains that all is well, right? So how many of you have noticed that just in that moment, you feel more relaxed? Yeah. And I encourage you to take this practice. Raise your hand if you go from meeting to meeting to meeting on Zoom. Any of you? A couple of you. All right. I encourage you to do that for like a minute. I mean, I only did 3 counts of 4. It's like 16 all the way around. So that was under a minute, right? And it resets you as you go into the next thing, that we actually create some physical space in our brain and our breathing between where we were and where we're going, which actually makes us better listeners for that next thing that we go to. All right. So let's move on and we will just get going. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. Everybody have a piece of paper nearby? Yeah? Cool. So make a quick list for yourself. On the list, write down the names of 4 people who you love. 4 people who are in your world. It's the first 4 that come to mind. Who do you love? All right. Everybody have your 4? So the next instruction is to look at that list and close your eyes again. Just think for about maybe 10 seconds, 15 is kind of long. What you love about each of these people. Like, get a picture of them in your mind's eye. Then I'm going to invite you to cross one name off the list. Tough choice, right? How about crossing off another name? And then one more so that you only have one name left on the list. Let me just see. Show of hands if you're done. You got all the way down to one person left on your list. Great. So here's a question for you. Did you show up on your list? I see almost 100% of you saying, nope, I wasn't even on my own list. So, and when we talk about managing our inputs and how we can control for, the external pressures that are coming at us at all times, we're finally emerging from this period that we've been in with the pandemic, and still there are a lot of external forces. So if we don't put ourselves in the center of our list, who else will? And I'm sure you've heard the analogy, but it's worth reminding you of here. The extent to which we love ourselves first causes everything else to fall into place. With the analogy being, when you get on an airplane, what do the flight attendants say about your oxygen mask? Yep, Kaylee?
Like, put it on for yourself before you start helping others.
Yes. So how many of us in the way that we walk through the world are always doing things for other people and putting ourselves last? So much so that we don't even end up on our list. And what I've noticed about myself, maybe you can relate to this, maybe you can't, is the extent to which I neglect what I need, I feel more resentful of the people around me for asking for more of me. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Right? They're used to us giving everything because we've conditioned them to do that. So the extent to which we can start to create some healthy boundaries that I need this time for me and I need to manage my own life so that I can be here 100% for you is, how do we relearn that if that's not our natural place to be? Okay. So one of the things that helps us to do that is to notice where in our lives we are blocking and building with the people around us. And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. Most of you who know me know that I come from a background of improvisational theater. Like, whose line is it anyway? I actually do stage improv, and our company is based on the belief that when you experience things, you take it in very differently when it comes in to your head and your heart than when it just all comes in here and stops. How many of you have been to enough webinars and you can't even really say what they were about? Like, if you took one nugget away and you didn't apply it, was the nugget even there the following week? So we truly believe that the extent to which you experience it more deeply embeds it in your body, mind, and spirit, and you're more able to call on it and bring it forward when you need it. So what we're going to do now is we are going to play a game. Haley, turn your camera on. So I need you. So we're going to do an exercise called Yes and Story.
Haley's got something going on.
All right. Fine. All right. So we're going to do an exercise called Yes and Story. It comes from the world of improvisation. We are simply going to say yes to each other. I'm going to invite you to unmute your cameras. Chris, do you have somebody sitting next to you too?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Mandy.
Hi, Mandy.
Hi,
Nice to have you in the room.
thank you. Nice to be here.
And
All right.
Shannon's here too. She's listening.
Okay, Chris, Mandy, and Shannon. Awesome. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this exercise called Yes and Story. It's very simple. I'm going to start with a line, and then I'm going to say, take it. And in this case, I'll say, take it, Kaylee. And she's going to say yes and add something to the story based on what I just said. There are no right or wrong answers here. You can make a really bad story. And in fact, that's the invitation to you, is make a really bad story. When we get to Chris, you can pass it to your daughters one at a time, and then we'll pick somebody else who's out here in Zoom land and say, take it, so-and-so. All right, we clear? We'll start this and see how it goes. All right, so one day, Sandy was out at the mall. Take it, Kaylee. So you're gonna say yes and.
Yes, and at the mall, she ran into Laura at Forever 21.
Tell her, yeah, take it.
Yes, take it. Oh, Haley's not on. Beth.
Remember to unmute.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Oh, yeah, okay. Take it, Sandy.
And Lauren and I decided to go out and get a martini and take it, Kathy.
Fine. Okay. Yes. And I joined you guys.
Yes, and Kathy joined them.
That's right. I caught up with you at the mall with the martinis, and we were just having a grand old time when all of a sudden, take it, Heather.
I like that. Yes. When all of a sudden, a strange man walked into the room and we all turned our heads and realized, Lauren, take it,
Take
Lauren.
That this man was actually, yes, that this man was actually a celebrity hiding in disguise, and that celebrity was Take It, Kaylee.
Yes, and that celebrity was a very famous actor whose name was Take It, Christine.
Yes, and can you believe it was Kevin Costner? We were so excited. We asked him to get in the Uber with us because we were too drunk to drive home. And then he decided that he would take it, Mandy.
Yes. Take us on a joyride in his yellow Lamborghini. He took us shopping in New York. We went to a bunch of stores and he bought us all a brand new handbag.
All right.
It was really exciting because Take It, Kathy.
Oh, no. Yes. It was really exciting because inside each handbag was $1 million. And then we all decided to go.
Lori.
Take it, Lori. Where is she?
Can she hear us?
Nope. Oh, no, she's. No, okay.
You can pass it back to me.
Okay, take it, Ellen.
Handbags in hand. We looked inside and there was $1,000 cash each. So we bought front seat tickets to Hamilton and had a great rest of the day after the show in New York City. All right. Thank you for playing. So, the yes and story that we've just been making up, it gives us some gifts that we want to talk about. So talk to me for a minute. What did you have to do in that exercise to make yourself succeed?
Listen,
Yeah, you had to be listening. What else?
think,
Think. Yeah, what else?
Improvising.
Yeah, you were improvising. Yep, Heather.
Be
Be
creative.
open to what comes next.
Yes, you had to be open to what came next. Did any of you were you in your head sort of pre-thinking what was going to come next? And then the story changed trajectory? Anybody
yeah.
have that happen?
yes.
Right, you're like Kevin Costner, yeah. Anything else? What other skills do you think you used doing that exercise?
Imagination, creativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being able to change directions quickly.
Yeah, so you had to pivot.
Mhm.
Does that happen in your work lives?
Mhm.
Do you need to be listening? Do you need to be noticing changes in direction? Do you sometimes have to just go with it and trust that it's going in a direction that you'd support? Right? So this skill that you're practicing is called the yes and principle. And what yes and affords us is the opportunity to, the yes piece of it is my appreciation that yes, you've offered me something meaningful and useful. It's an acknowledgement that I heard you, right? That I didn't just, like if you had said, you know, and it's Kevin Costner and the next person had said, no, it's Martin Lawrence. And you're like, didn't she just say Kevin Costner? Have you ever had that happen at work where somebody makes a suggestion or they make a statement and the other people in the room just ignore it and keep going?
Yeah.
Right? Like how often does that happen and what does that do to us and to the people around us when that environment is created, right? Where ideas aren't appreciated. So this yes and also relates to how we manage what's happening in our worlds, right? Because the yes is that whole piece of I heard you. The and is I heard you and I'm going to acknowledge that you're adding some value to the conversation. And I'm going to build from there. I'm going to collaborate forward from there. I'm going to intentionally stay on track with you instead of interjecting my idea so that we can get alignment between the two of us. It doesn't mean I don't have a valid idea. It just means I'm willing to stay in the track, in the lane with you until we finish having this conversation without changing the subject and doing what we call blocking. All right. It creates an environment of inspiring and creativity. So how many of you may be thinking at this point, well, that's great in a fairy tale world where you don't work with other humans, but you don't know the people I work with. You haven't met the people that I interact with on a daily basis. It's not so easy to yes and in the environment I'm in. Does anybody have that thought? Yeah. Okay. So then the question is, how do we use curiosity as a mechanism to help us to explore how to get more information about what a person is talking about, seek value in what they say, and still maintain our personal boundaries? Because I don't know about you, but I think a lot of the time I have stress in my world because I'm too lax with my boundaries. Like I know what I want. I know what time I have available to me. Other people are in my boundary of time, space continuum, right? And the extent to which I'm distracted means the work just has to happen at another time of day, right? So the question is, how can we manage our own boundaries and still acknowledge the value that other people are bringing to us? So we're going to do an exercise, we call it Get Curious. And here's what's going to happen. First of all, in the chat, let me drop this for a second. In the chat, can we see, like, if you think of some of the people in your life, some of the situations that are challenging, what is it that a person that you care for or a person that you have to interact with says or does that would normally be a cause of concern or upset for you? What are the kinds of things people say or do that can be a cause of upset for you?
Ellen, is this anybody in our lives or does it have to be clients or
Can be
coworkers?
anyone in your lives.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we just sharing?
Yeah. So somebody who's constantly saying that won't work because, thank you, Chris. What else? What other situations or things that people say are the things I don't want to try that. So just a refusal to engage,
The
right?
classic is we did that many years ago and it didn't work.
Yeah, yeah, right. We tried that already. It didn't work.
Mm.
Anything else? So I have an example. So I have an elderly mom. She's 86, right? And we'll be talking and she'll say, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to start my car and I'm going to go for a ride. Well, there's no car out in the parkway. There's no car in the driveway anymore because we took it away.
Mm.
She shouldn't be driving, right? But she will adamantly tell me that she needs to go for a ride. So I can tell her, no, mom, you're wrong. And I can correct her and remind her that she's wrong, right? Or I can use this approach, which is to engage curiosity instead as a way of building our conversation together. So in this first thing, I asked you to share something that you find challenging that a person you care for says or does. We said it could be personal. We said it could be business, right? And then what's a genuinely curious question that would continue the conversation if it's appropriate? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to help her get her coat and take her out to the parking lot, right? But it might be a conversation like, it's interesting that you want to go out and get in your car. Is it because you want to go for a ride? What is it that you want right now? Instead of correcting her and reminding her that that's not really an option anymore. Because if you think about it, would that take her into openness with me or oppositional behavior?
Additional.
Yeah, I'm going to get pushback, right? So then how can we create a statement or response that affirms the other person, even if we need to say no? So when you think about the person who said, you know, we can't do that because we've already tried it and it didn't work. Think about what's a genuinely curious question. And when it says genuinely, that's really important. Like not just asking, tell me more about that, because you've been told you're supposed to say, tell me more about that. How can we add a genuinely curious question that helps us understand the other person's point of view more so that we can actually show appreciation, which is the piece that we're going to get to next. How can we practice saying yes to their suggestion, including that statement of gratitude versus giving them an argument, right? So in the instance of my mom saying, so what I'm hearing you say is you really would just like to get out and go for a ride. It's been a while since you've been out and about in town. You're sort of missing seeing the leaves change. Let's go for a ride. I'll make time to come over and do that with you, right? Respecting her boundary, creating a positive acknowledgement for her. So when you think about the people who in your life who tend to be oppositional or give you a ton of pushback, how can you seek value in the opposition or the challenge that they're giving you is the question. So anyone have a question about that? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to go into breakout rooms. Let me see if I can do this. I'll create 3 of them since there's a small number of you. And I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes to just have a conversation with each other about what is this conversation? What is the thing that is causing you some stress with these people, right? And then how can you recognize and ask curious questions to add value to the relationship instead of making them wrong for being the way they are? Okay. And I will send the questions into the breakout rooms with you so that it refreshes the conversation. All right. So I have Christine, I have the 3 of you in the same room with Lauren, and then there's 2 other breakout rooms. So enjoy your conversations with each other. Be sure to introduce yourselves to each other, tell each other what you do, and then get into the conversation. Okay. So here we go. All right, welcome back.
Big again.
How those conversations go? So when you frame switching up the conversation or your response to someone, how does that affect you, do you think?
A little on the defensive.
What'd you say, Heather?
It can put you on the defensive, like if you say something and someone kind of changes the topic or pivots to something completely, you feel minimized, you feel like a little, off put, just like, okay, and you kind of tuck that away and it doesn't sit well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tail between the legs.
What'd you say, Sandra?
I
Tail
said,
between
put
the
the
legs.
tail between the legs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if somebody is operating in your world, in your office, in your company with their tail between their legs, are they bringing their best selves to work every day?
No.
Right? Same thing happens at home. If people are feeling not like their thoughts and opinions aren't valued, even if we perceive them to be negative, then how does that affect their willingness to contribute and say something when it's important to them? Right? So one of the best examples I have of this is I work with a lot of engineers. We work primarily in manufacturing and AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction. And so we work with a lot of engineers, and a lot of engineers tend to be like, if it didn't work last time, it's not going to work this time. Their frame of reference is immediately drawn from what already happened, right? They don't tend to be super expansive thinkers, which is ironic because they're doing a lot of innovative work out there, but they tend to be more incremental. So if somebody says it didn't work last time, it's not going to work this time, my response used to be, we just need different people here. We need people with new ideas, fresh ideas.
Mhm.
This shift in lens to tell me what it is about it that didn't work. And why do you think it didn't work last time? Gives us a lot more information to work with, right? At the very least, we're saying to them, your opinion and thought process around this matters to me. Right? And there may be something useful in there that something has changed since last time it didn't work, and their context is based on an old set of assumptions. So how often do we discard things that we used to do completely, saying, we got to do it completely different, when actually there are things of value that we can bring forward, right? Everybody wants new, better, different, and sometimes the way we've been doing things is just fine, right? Because there are also people in our workplaces that are always wanting to switch things up and always make them different, which creates disruption and noise and a lot more work for us, when in fact it's fine. So, that's part of the conversation, is how do we seek value in the suggestions, thoughts, and opinions of others around us as a conduit to increasing our own sense of well-being, right? Because if I think of you as somebody who's bringing ideas and thoughts forward as opposed to somebody who's oppositional, I listen to you differently. I value you differently. You feel differently when you're in a conversation with me because you're not seeing me rolling my eyes and dismissing you and changing the subject. So a lot of you are nodding. Yay, we're tracking. All right, so here's, I promised a little bit in the description of the session, I promised a little bit of brain science, but I first want to check in. Everybody good? Everybody still, happy? Okay, here we go. All right, so just a little bit of science. One of the things we do at Boulder Company is that we do a lot of work in emotional intelligence. We do a lot of monitoring what happens in people's brains when certain things happen. And in the science of how do I create a happier me, how do you create a happier you, is all about brain chemistry. Do you believe me? Because we did that little meditative piece at the beginning, and almost everybody noted, I feel a little bit calmer. And you created that for yourselves. So let's take a look at 4 main categories. Remember, from here, we got all these chemicals floating around in our brains. So the happiness chemicals are very specific, and things happen. Things happen in our world that can cause, I'm sure you've all heard of fight or flight, right? Yes, has everybody heard of fight or flight? The amygdala hijack. Basically, our brains are a bunch of chemicals. And the base of our brain is where our lizard brain lives, our amygdala. And what happens is when we perceive a threat, all of the blood flow drains out of our brain into the amygdala to prepare us to protect ourselves. So if we're in an environment where people yell at us all the time, if we're in an environment where there's a lot of criticism, if there are actual dangers in our workplace, we're in a highly attuned, always scanning our environment state that doesn't allow for creativity, right? There's so much study. A fabulous book I just read is called What Happened to You by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Kenny. I can't recommend it highly enough to start to understand how we can create more peace and calm for ourselves in a very frenetic world, because it talks about the impacts of being in a constant high stim environment where we never know where to focus our energies. Okay, but let's get to the brain science, because while there's, fight or flight, what happens when we're under threat is our body throws off adrenaline and cortisol. Those are the chemicals that get us ready for a fight. They get us ready to run. You've all heard stories of people like lifting cars off of people in the street because they have that rush of adrenaline. The challenge is that when we're in an environment that constantly is pinging on our amygdala, on that primitive part of our brain, we are in a constant low-grade state of upset. So it might not be as intense as our hearts pounding, right? Or our face flushing, or feeling overwhelmed or shaky or any of that stuff. It could be a low grade heartbeat, and different people have different capacities for being in these environments. How many of you know you need to work in a constantly quiet environment? Any of you quiet people? Some people have music on in the background, totally cool, right? But it's more of a question of like, what kind of environment can I create around myself that helps me to create the environment where I can be the most creative? So let's just look for a quick second at what happens with the different chemicals that create joy and happiness, because we can intentionally create more happy hormones running around our bodies. Isn't that I think that's the best news of the day, is that we can create joy and happiness for ourselves with some simple actions. So dopamine is it. Everybody's heard of getting a dopamine hit. Yes? Nod your heads, right? It happens when we finish a task. We're like, and I don't know how many of you are list makers. You check something off, you literally go, yay, and you draw a line through it. You go on to the next thing, right? Taking care of ourselves, making time for ourselves, going for a walk in the woods, making sure that you eat good food. All of that is self-care. And nutritious food and delicious food are in that dopamine reward area. And then also taking time and remembering to celebrate all of our accomplishments to the extent that we can. I tend to be a person who skips over accomplishments and I'm like, that's great, what's next? I don't know if any of you are that's great, what's next? I'd encourage you to go, that's great, and at least pause and say why this is great is, so that your brain actually catches up with your inclination to do the next thing, right? We don't pause in celebration often enough, but when we do, we get a dopamine hit from it. Yay. The next one is serotonin, that we can affect our mood and stabilize our mood through things like meditation that we did at the beginning, right? Exercise, vigorous exercise helps us. Being out in the sunshine this time of year, especially, making sure that we get outside, that we get vitamin K, that we get vitamin D, and if not, that we supplement for it, right? Swimming, like vigorous exercise, actually moving our body makes a huge difference in terms of our mood stabilization. Then oxytocin, the love hormone. People are like, well, I don't have a significant other in my life, or, there's something that like they're feeling a lack of. Well, you can go play with pets at that Petco. You can just say, I want to see that puppy, and have them sit on your lap for a little while, get puppy kisses, right? Volunteer at the Humane Society, play with a baby, holding hands. These are like little things. Paying somebody else a compliment causes us to get a hit of oxytocin, which is very different than someone paying us a compliment, right? That actual act of giving and generosity increases our sense of happiness and well-being, right? And the chamber has lots of opportunities for you to volunteer if you're not already doing that. The final thing is endorphins, which actually kill pain. So study after study after study shows that when you laugh, you learn. When you laugh, everything opens up in your world. It's why I started taking improv classes 10 years ago. I just needed more laugh in my life. I don't know about all of you, but I think silly is awesome, right? You can have dark chocolate if you want it though. And then there's also aromatherapy. So, the question isn't whether you can increase your happiness by changing the environment around you or intentionally doing things to help yourself. It's which one of these things resonates with you. We all have the capacity. I don't know about you, but my business partner and I tend to, like, some days I'll sit down at 8:30 in the morning, and at 4:30 I'm pushing back from my desk. And the only thing I've gotten up to do is use the bathroom, grab an apple, and come back to my desk. Raise your hand if this is you. Yeah, don't do that. Right? Why do we do that to ourselves? We have the ability to get up and move around. We might want to consider doing that, especially when we know that these are the chemicals that help us actually focus and have a better day every day. All right. What's your thoughts about that? Would love to hear your thoughts about brain chemicals and making your life better through movement and interaction. Heather?
I was just going to say that, I've come to know myself. I think a lot of us recognize through the years what works well, when we're more productive. And I can only sit at my desk for so long. I'm just not as productive. I'm not as focused. There is flexibility in my job. I'm lucky. But I like different atmospheres. So I might go to my office in the morning, take a break, go home, run my dog, something like that, and then sit back down for the afternoon and refocus. And I'm very productive. And so just, it might sometimes just going out, taking a break for lunch. A lot of us, I do a lot of times eat through lunch, but then I might take a break for a half an hour a little bit later in the day. So I just kind of knowing yourself, knowing when you're starting to go down, you need a break to rejuvenate. I think just is really important for our own mental health and productivity.
Thank you. Others? What did you notice during that conversation? Lauren, I saw you nodding along there a little bit. You're muted.
I bet. I find when I have a ton of tasks for the day, I tend to make better progress if I work for an hour and then I walk away for an hour. And that doesn't have to be, essentially going outside, but, maybe doing the dishes, feeding the cats, anything that's away from that work. And then I can go back and then take another half an hour break. And that just seems to work out well for me. And then I find that my productivity stays good. But if I don't do that break, then I just get distracted and I just get sick of sitting and, nothing gets done.
And the cumulative effect of Chris, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that sometimes I'll just take my laptop from in my office and go into our break room and just sit there where there's no other stimulation to get my work done. If I'm just overloaded, and just sitting there with nothing and really focusing really helps.
Yeah, creating healthy boundaries around like what I need to work is, like, particularly if I'm writing proposals and stuff, it's stone cold silence, right? And if I'm downstairs working at the kitchen table, that doesn't happen. How about you, Beth? I see you that you unmuted over there.
Sure. Well, my day is dictated with a lot of chaos. So, I could have the best laid plans and 4 or 5 events that are on the schedule. And then, an emergency comes in and, there's a trauma cleanup needed, or I need to be on site to speak to a hoarding client. So, customers had a disaster in their home and, it's drop everything and it turns your day upside down. So, I don't get to go into another room for quiet time. I don't get to take a half an hour lunch to walk away. So it's really just trying to make the most of your time. Cause I mean, we're in a 24/7 business. So the phone rings at midnight, the phone rings at 3 a.m. and you can't not answer and then not go into action to try to help someone. So, it's really just trying to find, I always say just moments here and there, where you just take a small bit of time here and there to try to just wash away the stress of the day. So, we always are, I love, that you brought up the fight or flight because, we always believe in, complimenting others and, we always try to find joy in every day, because every day is a lot of challenges that we run quickly out of time to deal with. So,
yeah, absolutely. And if you think about, the exercise that we did at first when we made that list of who do you love, when it's contents under pressure all the time, how often do we get to the end of the day and think, I didn't take care of myself at all today?
right.
Right. And if that becomes the pattern, that then is the pattern with the cumulative effects of feeling a little less happy, a little less content, getting a little more annoyed by the people in our worlds. Right. And if we're talking about how we mind our inputs, you can't control who calls you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The question is how much of what we can, how much can we control inside of our work life and space? How much, if that's all consuming, then what else are we adding before work and after work as obligations that maybe we don't need to do, that are not, we could do that, we could not do them and nobody's gonna die, right? And,
that's not an option in my world, but it sounds so.
Well, and I'll give you, this is a silly example, but this is a friend years ago, a friend of mine and I were hiking in the woods and she said, I'm beyond stressed. And I said, why are you beyond stressed? And she said, because I have to make Christmas cookies. And she said it just like that. I have to make Christmas cookies. I'm like, why do you have to make Christmas cookies? She said, everybody depends on me. I usually make 5 or 6 kinds. My father died 6 months ago. I'm just really not in the headspace to do it. Everybody at work is depending on me, right? She was so inside of her own story and creating so much stress for herself because she felt obligated to do something that really, and so as we walked in, I didn't tell her, no, you don't have to do that. I just said, what's important to you about that? And it came out that it was really about the time she spent with her son and her husband decorating and all of the things that were around the cookies. And I said, well, can you still do a small thing with Kevin just so the two of you can do that together?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe just tell all your coworkers that you're off the hook this year because your dad just died. Right. So very often we get into this black and white either or thinking that causes us to just feel overwhelmed when in fact we do have choice in that matter. Right. So Beth, I'm going to ask you to mute because I think there's a lot of sound.
It's not mine.
It's not yours, is it, Kathy?
No.
It's probably me.
All right. So thank you, everyone. The last exercise that we're going to do is a quick one. It's the giving of gifts. And it's very simple. Let me see who I'm going to ask to unmute. Sandy, can you unmute? There you go. So it's very simple. I'm going to say, Sandy, I'm giving you a gift, and I'm just going to hold out my hands, and you're going to take it from me, and you're going to tell me what it is. That's all you have to do. Sandy, I'm giving you a gift. No matter what you say, you're right.
A puppy.
Wonderful. Give somebody else a gift.
Lauren, I'm giving you my gift of.
I would also like a puppy.
Now
We have
we're
a
making
theme.
fuss.
Why don't you pick someone else?
Kathy, I'm going to give you the gift of
Yes.
Kathy, what would you like? Lauren just gave you a gift. It can be
Oh.
anything
Oh.
you want.
Oh, okay. I want it to be chocolate.
good choice.
Perfect.
The big box of chocolate. How's
All
that?
right. Hand it off to someone else.
Okay. Oh, Christine, I'm gonna give you a box of.
Up. Just give her a gift.
I'm gonna give you a gift.
Okay. Thank you for the gift of your knowledge because that's what I really, really need.
All right. Now
Okay.
give a gift to someone else.
I will give a gift to Mandy
Thank you
for the.
for the gift certificate to get a massage at the spa. I really appreciate it.
That's good. Boy.
And I'm giving my gift to Lauren.
It is a gas gift card.
Mm. Who hasn't gone? Raise your hand if you haven't gone yet.
I didn't think Beth has gone yet. Beth, I'm giving you a gift.
Thank you. I appreciate the gift of a $100 Visa gift card that is going to be donated to Safe Futures Domestic Violence Shelter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice. How about Heather? You want to give a gift to Heather?
Oh, Heather, I give you a big gift.
Oh, boy. Thank you so much for your gift of a winter jacket to be shared with a local homeless person.
You want to give something to
Given-
Kaylee?
Yeah, Kaylee, I was just going to say, handing something off to Kaylee.
Thanks for the gift of holiday gifts to children in need.
You want to give it back to me?
Yeah, I give you a gift, Helen, of
Of a trip to Fiji. Thank you. I'm going to take care of me this holiday season. So give yourselves a round of applause. This is how we do this online. Round of applause. Awesome. So what's the difference between giving the gifts we just did and the way sometimes we give gifts?
Don't put as much thought into it.
Yeah, that's true. Who defined what the gift was?
The receiver.
The receiver, right? How many of us rack our brains trying to pick out the perfect gift for somebody? Sandy's like, no, I don't do that. Yes, you do. Right?
All the time, all the time, all the time.
All the time, all the time. And how often do we ask people around us, what is it you want most? Right? So, which brings us to this question of how often do we ask in general for what we want and need? Like 2 months ago, I sent texts out to my girls. What do you want for Christmas? What do your significant others want for Christmas? More information is better, right? Because otherwise we're left to guess. And I don't know about you, but I'm generally more pleased with things that I actually wanted than things that somebody else thought I wanted. And this goes right into work and the kind of work we delegate to people. Like, I think you want to plan that party. I don't realize when I give it to you, because I think it's fun, that this is like the worst thing you've ever thought of, right? And it's going to completely overwhelm you. So in this world of how we manage our inputs, part of it is, what are we asking for? Do we ask specifically for what we need? And how can we involve the people around us to help us get more of what we all want together? Sandy, I see your hand raised. Oh, you're just pointing. Okay. All right. So I'm mindful of the time, and my parting piece to you is a question, which is, are you the bright bubble? Are you the bright yellow bubble in the blue room? Right? Are you the person that's holding the torch for everyone else around you, for cheerfulness and being upbeat and being that center of positivity?
A lot of fun, yeah.
Okay. And then what would happen if we intentionally surrounded ourselves with more happy people? With more happy, joyful people? How would our lives be different or better if we brought forth more of those positive emotions that we know that we can generate by giving to others, as many of you chose just now, right? By paying somebody a compliment, by getting outside and being in nature and in the woods, by remembering to breathe and meditate. How would our lives be different if we were surrounded by more people who took better care of themselves and as a result had more energy for life and the work that we do together? So that would be my invitation as we head into the holiday season. When we talk about minding your inputs, is notice who you're hanging out with, right? Notice the TV that you're watching. You know, is CNN on in the background, or MSNBC or Fox News or any of those constant sources of bad news and hijack? They program for amygdala hijack. They don't program for peace and calm. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, I recommend it highly. That is a joyride. Wonderful. And so that's my invitation to you. You know, I'm always happy to talk with anyone about anything. We specialize, as I said, in manufacturing and AEC, and we also love helping teams connect and bring joy to each other to get their work done, right? Work doesn't have to be drudge. We really can do better together through intentionally bringing optimism and positive endorphins and the kinds of things that really build us up together into our workplaces. So with that, I ask, what are you taking away from today?
I like your yes and.
All right, yes and.
That's a good thought process, to be more open to others and their ideas and what they can bring to the table.
Thank you, Heather. What else are people taking away from today?
Putting yourself on the list.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Christine owns a very demanding women-owned business in the construction industry, right? New England Flaggers. So yeah, putting yourself first in the equation when you own your own business can sometimes be a real challenge, right? There are a lot of entrepreneurs in the room. Mm-hmm. What else? Lauren, what did you take away from today?
I kind of feel better that I know that a lot of other people share the same problem as I do with the we've always done it this way and we don't want to change, or I don't think that's going to work, so we're not going to try it. So it makes me feel better knowing that I'm not the only person that hears that on a weekly basis.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Beth? What are you taking away from today?
I like the yes and. That was great.
Wonderful. How about you, Kaylee?
Being mindful and about your own health within each day, to create a better atmosphere for others around you and not just yourself, to be able to put your best work forward.
Yes, thank you. And Christine's daughter, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Mandy.
Mandy, thank you.
I would say taking a minute to breathe. I have to remember that because that really does help, and you have more control than what you think over how you feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Sandra said, definitely taking the dog for a walk after work. Fresh air is the best. I agree. I'm always game for a walk together. So if anybody ever wants to go walking after work, we can hang out. How about you, Kathy? What are you taking away from today?
I need to use more brain chemicals and get them going. And actually, I have an Apple Watch, and it just told me that it's time to stand up. And it hollers at me if I'm, not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Plus, first thing in the morning, it's new now. I didn't have this before on here. A moment of mindfulness. It comes on after I've been up for just a short while, and it tells you what to think about for the day. It's pretty cool. So I like having my Apple friend with me. That helps immensely. But the chemical, I thought it was very interesting with the chemicals in brain. I knew about endorphins, and lots of food for thought there.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you past the 1 o'clock hour. It's 1:02. I'm noticing the time. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And hopefully you're taking something away. If you'd like a copy of those slides, I'm happy to email them to you. So just send me an email, which is simply ellen@thebouldercompany.com. And I'm happy to send you the slides. All right.
All right.